Smile.
Well, Chris, we appreciate you taking time out of your schedule this Sunday Sunday afternoon to join us for the interview process. We introduced each other. Well, we know each other from earlier this year when you interviewed with us. Again, I'm John Paris. I'm chair of the Asian American Group's Endorsement Committee. On behalf of the whole committee, we appreciate you being here today. For those watching at home or at a later date, this is Chris Brooks. He is the Democratic candidate for State Assembly District 10. Normally, I would introduce AAG and give you more of a background on us, but again, you've interviewed with us before, so that we will dispense with that and go right into getting more information about you. Please, if you would, tell us why you decided to run for this particular race at this particular time.
Thank you. Well, I'm Chris Brooks, and I'm running for Assembly District 10. I was born and raised here in this part of Las Vegas, and I've decided to raise my family here. I have 3 kids, 2 grandkids, and I started a business here, almost 20 years ago in Assembly District 10. It was one of the first solar companies in the country, and I located it right here in Southern Nevada. And I care deeply about this community. I think we have a tremendous amount of opportunities, and we also have a lot of obstacles. And I feel that I have the background and the experience to help this state achieve some of those opportunities.
This has been a rather curious election cycle. Both Trump and Sanders seem to really key in on voters who felt that their needs were either that they were underrepresented or even completely unrepresented. What ideas do you have to try and capture those individuals, those people that are somewhat perceive themselves as being disenfranchised, to try and keep them active in the political process, not only for the benefit of yourself, but for the benefit of Nevadans in general?
Well, I see that every day when I go out and talk to potential voters, and I want them to understand that every single vote counts, and that while a lot of things are happening on the national stage right now that are very, very undesirable, and I don't like, the presidential campaign, how it's looked and the tone of it, and there's a lot of folks who are frustrated with the gridlock in Washington, D.C., that your local races, your city, county, state legislature, they affect your day-to-day life with the budgets that we pass and the laws that we pass. They affect you every day. Your children's education, your health care, the businesses that you go to or the businesses that you own or work at. And so those races are so important, but they're determined by a very small amount of votes. And so while you might feel disillusioned by what's happening in Washington, D.C., or what you see on the national stage, we're your neighbors, and we need your votes, every last one of them. And so I think that I've been trying to kind of convey that message to some of the more frustrated and disillusioned voters, or some of the first-time voters who just don't feel that their voice is going to be heard. I'm their neighbor, and that's what I try to convey to them. And some of these close races, these assembly races and these county races, they're determined by 1, 2, 50 votes, and especially in Assembly District 10, the last 2 elections have been determined by, or the primary election and then the general election were within 60 votes. So every vote does count, and so I hope that message resonates with them, and because I feel their frustration.
In the time that you spent walking the district, which I know for a fact has been rather extensive, what kind of feedback have you been getting from your potential constituents regarding the plans for the Raiders relocating to Nevada and the need for, well, they have indicated a need for public funding to support the building of their new stadium?
Honestly, a lot fewer potential voters are aware of what's going on than I would have expected would be. And the ones that I do talk to that are familiar with the issue, they would love to see a professional sports team located here in Las Vegas, as would I. But they do not want to see, I think the common phrase that I hear is, why should we pay for a billionaire's stadium? And, while I see the benefit in public-private partnerships for all kinds of different businesses, I kind of share their sentiments.
One of the proposals that seems to have the most amount of steam is, at least pursuant to what we've heard over the last few days, has been a proposed room tax increase to have that pay for the approximately $750 million that is being requested from the public, quote unquote, from the public. Assuming that, with only those facts at your disposal, obviously we haven't seen the specifics, but assuming it is a room tax which would disproportionately affect locals, and it would obviously affect tourists more than people who live here, what would your feelings be regarding that manner of subsidy for such a stadium?
Well, I think the room tax is the appropriate vehicle for funding those types of projects. I just don't think that $750 million of room tax to a stadium that would, from all the details that I've seen in the press and have heard, it's just a horrible deal. So I don't think the deal as it's been proposed, or as it's been reported has been proposed, is good for the state of Nevada.
You're one of the first individuals to actually come right out and not be wishy-washy about it, and I respect that. You had indicated that you had, from our previous interview with you, as well as today, you had indicated you have a significant amount of experience in the solar industry. You know, obviously, technological companies and businesses are kind of few and far between here in Nevada. You know, we had Tesla coming up north. We have Faraday down south, and there's other opportunities for growth. But what ideas do you have to harness whatever residual momentum there might be from those two more technologically oriented companies deciding to come and join us here in Nevada? How can we keep that moving forward?
Well, both of those companies were lured here using a host of different tools, and one of those was tax abatement. And I think that I've seen tax abatement used for projects or industries to locate in Nevada. I've seen it used in good ways, and I've seen it used in what I feel to be bad ways. And so I think we can make some modifications to the statutes we currently have around tax abatement for projects and companies that would help continue to bring companies to the state of Nevada, but also by modernizing our energy policies to make us a competitive market for potential energy-intensive consumers to come here and locate here, and also through modification of our energy policies and modernizing them, I think that we would see a natural growth in energy storage. And both Tesla and Faraday are, at their core, energy storage companies that use them for electric vehicles. And so I think that we could encourage those kind of, and we have a lot of renewable energy companies that are either located here, headquartered here, or do business in the state. And through energy policy, I think we can encourage the growth of those industries.
And you had mentioned some modifications to the tax abatement statutes, and forgive me, I'm somewhat ignorant of their specifics. What tweaks would you be proposing?
Well, I think that if we're going to provide an abatement, a tax abatement to an industry that does business in the state of Nevada, they should be hiring Nevada contractors, Nevada subcontractors, Nevada vendors, and Nevada employees where it is possible. And I think that we can encourage that through some of the language in those tax abatement statutes. And currently, I know that was the motivation, and it has been helpful in creating jobs in the state. I think we can create more jobs for the dollars that we abate. And so those are the types of modifications I would be looking at.
You had mentioned, well, we had mentioned Faraday being in the south, and obviously Tesla being up in the north, and there is a certain amount of, in Nevada, a certain amount of north-south tension. Most states just deal with partisan politics, but we have a geographic issue to deal with as well. Assuming you're elected to the legislature, how do you plan on navigating the north-south divide in the same way that you will also, in all probability, have to navigate the partisan divide that exists?
Sometimes I think the north-south divide is more intense than the partisan divide. And but I just enrolled my son and moved him into the University of Nevada, Reno 2 weeks ago, and it hurt a little bit. But I think that the first thing that we as Southern Nevadans need to do is understand that there is a state out there, outside of Las Vegas and the Las Vegas Valley and Henderson and North Las Vegas. There is a big state out there that we are a part of. And if we start looking at ourselves like Nevadans, as opposed to Southern Nevadans first and foremost, I think that we can start to kind of maybe bridge some of those divides and start communicating with our brothers and sisters all over the state. And I would urge them to do the same thing. We are the financial engine of the state of Nevada, and we are 80% of the population of the state of Nevada right here in this valley or in this county. And with that comes a lot of responsibilities. And I just think that getting our Southern Nevadans, because the rest of the state is very aware of Southern Nevada, but I find Southern Nevadans all the time who really aren't aware of the rest of the state. And I think that just maybe through education and through, I think maybe Nevada history should be a mandatory class in Clark County School District again, like it was when I was a child, that teaches us about our entire state. So I think the responsibility, believe it or not, is largely on us to get out there and learn more about our state, us being Southern Nevadans.
And you had mentioned, the 80-20 discrepancy. One issue that's come up has been the funding formula as it applies to education and how it's been untouched since, I want to say like 79. I mean, it's been decades since it's really been looked at. Do you think that, because of the passage of time, 3.5 decades have gone by, that it's time to tackle that issue? And assuming that's the case, what ideas do you have to try and balance out the scales, since they seem to be somewhat imbalanced based upon how much other counties are getting in relation to what Clark County is getting per capita?
It's time for a refresh, that is for sure. I mean, we were the fastest growing community in the United States for a couple of decades, and we still are growing. And so we have growing pains of being one of the largest school districts in the country, and with a huge population of English as a second language students. And those things stress the system. And I think that we have to be, very cognizant of the cost of educating individual students in the rurals. It's a whole different ballgame out there. But we absolutely need to modernize the funding formula to reflect where we are in the state from a percentage of the population and our unique challenges that we have down here in Southern Nevada.
Rumor has it the Clark County School District may be broken up into sub-districts or whatever terminology they want to use. What's your feeling on that?
I think that there's a tremendous amount of frustration amongst parents and teachers and administrators in the Clark County School District, and I think that we're looking for any way to achieve better outcomes for our children. And I think that some incredibly good ideas have come out of those conversations. I am just very, very scared that the zip code that you live in and the demographic of your neighborhood is going to determine your education. And when we break it up into smaller pieces like that, we need to make sure that we protect the children that live in the individual districts, however they break that up, and however they give autonomy of both the curriculum and the budget. We make sure that they're getting funded correctly and appropriately, and it's a fair allocation of funds.
I apologize. I've just been asking all the questions like I normally do. Does anyone else want to jump in? I think I pimped both the questions that you normally ask, and that was unintentional. I apologize for it, but please.
Not at all. So, are you for the break up the district or keep the district together?
Well, I mean,
if you have your way, once you're in the assembly,
right. Well, I think that we've kind of that box has been opened, and it's going to be almost impossible to put it back in the box. And so, while I am for an equitable division of resources amongst all the kids in the district, And so now that I feel it is getting broken up, and then I just want to make sure that we hold everyone accountable at the school board and our trustees and in the legislature, that we are making sure that it's done in a fair and equitable way, so that all kids in Nevada get the same education, or same level of education.
So what do you see as beneficial to break up our school district? Or, because usually it's equal, divide per pupil. Okay, it doesn't matter what area you live in. So what's beneficial of breaking it up, you know, if you have same amount of funding, you would just have implement more oversight, or more people that is in there, more admins in there? What's the beneficial of it breaking it up?
And I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's kind of a foregone conclusion that horse left the barn. It's going to be broken up. I think one of the concerns, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Chris, is that not every area of the Clark County School District has the same median income. So if you take more wealthier areas, they will have a greater access to property taxes and other ways to fund their school districts, and less wealthy areas will have just less money per pupil. It doesn't sound like they're going to take the money that would have been for what would have been the old school district and break it up evenly. They're going to do it by whatever they call the sub-districts. So if you're in a sub-district where the income levels aren't as high, you're just not going to have as much money. It's not a one-for-one correlation.
Right. Well, and then, so I think the benefits of it are that you have some autonomy within the sub-districts around curriculum and how to use your budget. And that is unique to the group of kids that you have. And the downside is my fear that there could be you know, a shift of monies from the poorer schools to the you know, the more affluent neighborhoods and the schools in those. So that's we have a state board of education and a board of trustees and a legislature that need to watch that, and as this thing moves forward, need to make sure that doesn't happen. But you know, based upon what I've seen and the suggestions I've heard, that having some sort of autonomy around running their sub-districts seems to have some benefit. I think it would have some benefit, but you know, like any business or government, you have economies of scale that can be good from a purchasing standpoint and things like that, and from an efficiency standpoint. But once you get to a certain size, the bureaucracy becomes too cumbersome to be nimble enough to change with the times. And so I think we have a little bit of both of that happening in the Clark County School District. And hopefully now that we're moving in this direction, those two issues could maybe get fixed.
Mike, you got any questions?
No, yeah, I can already.
Oh. Well, Chris, you when it's one person on the dais, the time frames are a little skewed because you're the only one talking, other than, you know, the four of us, or me. We again can't thank you enough for coming back out for a second go around with us. Why don't you finish us off? Give us about 60 seconds. Why are you the better candidate to be elected to District 10 in the State Assembly?
Well, I actually feel that there is a place for government in our lives, and that the state legislature is an important part of what makes this state work, and that the laws that it passes and the budgets that it's in charge of are just part of our day-to-day life. And I think that from what I've seen from my opponent, that I don't believe she necessarily feels the same way about government, period. And so I think that, you know, my background being born and raised in this district, my deep roots having started a business and raised a family in this district, and my love for the state of Nevada and for Southern Nevada and Las Vegas, I think coupled with my long history of working with government as opposed to against it, make me the best candidate for this job.
Perfect. Chris, before you go, we'd love to take some photos with you.
Oh, that'd be great.
But other than that, thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank you
guys.
very much.
Appreciate it. Oh, and you're an AD10 now here at your your new
Right.
facility, right? So I hope I win so I can represent this, this facility.
Well, just so you know, every Sunday night at 5:30, if you're not doing anything, which probably won't happen for the next, whatever, 9 weeks, however many it is, they actually do a potluck here. So that's why
Tonight?
tonight they'll be doing a potluck at about what, 5:30?